Hey folks, we are back at livecoding.ca. My name is Nick Taylor. I'm staff software engineer at Netlify, and today I'm hanging out with my buddy Drew. Drew, how's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. Smooth sailing Tuesday so far.
Oh, that's good. That's good. For folks who might not know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Drew Clements. I'm a front-end developer from South Georgia here in the United States. Front-end engineer at a company called Nacelle. We're doing a lot of fun stuff over there. I tinker a lot on side
Okay.
projects. I get into a whole lot of stuff for no good reason.
Okay, okay. Up to no good shenanigans.
Productive
And
shenanigans.
yeah. No, it's all good. It's all good. And speaking of side projects, I know there's one thing, I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but you're working on a project called, I think it's called Hey Gumball. Is that right?
Yeah, my current endeavor is a project called Hey Gumball. I have a pattern of ending up with domains I don't know what to do with inexplicably. I came up with the name Hey Gumball, loved it, and like just sat on it until I thought of something to build on top of it. It could have been
Okay.
anything.
Cool, cool.
I'm trying to build a way for tattoo artists to manage the high volume requests they get for, people email them, DM them, text them, call them all the time to ask about appointments and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to build is like a single point of contact that just makes managing all of that easier.
Okay, okay, gotcha. And for just to give folks some context, you used to work in a tattoo shop, right? Is
Yeah,
that right?
I tattooed for about 8 years before becoming a designer, then becoming a developer.
Okay. No, that's cool. Yeah, no, I've seen. Well, I know you got some tats, but I've seen a lot of
A
the
little
stuff you've
bit.
designed too. No, I like your work. It's really nice.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so that's cool. I didn't realize it was specific to tattoo artists. The Hey Gumball. Is that just to start off, or are you planning on maybe expanding that eventually, or like in terms of like an appointment
It's
system,
it's
or?
definitely so. I'm definitely trying to keep like the marketing verbiage generic. I know there are a lot of industries out there that have a lot of parallels to tattooing. I'm not against branching it out, but at least in the early
Okay.
stage, like I have my foot in the door with some friends in the tattoo industry. So I'm going
Okay.
to start there, use them as kind of like a test market. I mean, that's the market I want to help because that's the one I have the connection with. But if I can build something
Yeah,
really
yeah.
solid there and open it up later, this is definitely on the table.
That's cool. That's cool. Awesome sauce. And I'm gonna take a stab in the dark here, but is it built in Vue?
It is. It is built. It is
Okay.
built in Vue 3.
Okay. That's my terrible segue to say we're gonna be talking about Vue today. And this title did not rhyme on purpose. It just happened to. So we're doing Vue with Drew today. At Nacelle, it's a headless CMS, I believe. Is that right?
It's not quite a headless CMS. We're kind of a data connection layer for e-commerce platforms. Maybe they have their products in Shopify, their content on Sanity, their payment processing through Stripe. And what Nacelle does is rather than you having to manage all three of those endpoints and all the fun stuff that
Okay.
comes with keeping those in sync, you just point them all at Nacelle. We do some fun stuff behind the scenes for like caching. I can't even think of all the jargon words right now. All the fun stuff that
Okay.
comes with data handling.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then we package that nicely in a nice GraphQL endpoint. So you go from managing
Okay.
three things and having to keep them and juggling them yourself to just dealing with one thing, and we do the juggling for you.
Cool. Cool. Amy from Virtual Coffee is like partially headed CMS.
Partially added CMS. I
I
like
like
that.
that. That could be a new term. That's gonna take off SEO for Nacelle right there. Awesome, awesome. Before we start talking about Vue a bit, I had a bit of a panic right before the stream started. I had because I always get everything set up before a guest comes on and stuff, and then
Mhm.
when I started working at Netlify, they shipped me like a new keyboard, mouse, super nice stuff, and I
Mhm.
haven't changed the batteries. And the mouse is rechargeable with USB-C, and it lasts
Mhm.
forever, and the keyboard lasts forever. But today it decided like the batteries are dead, and it was like literally a minute before you hopped on the video, and I'm like, oh crap! And then like I literally bought batteries the other day, so I was just like swapping them in, and I've got like a backup here just in case because I'm like
Nice.
paranoid. Paranoid live coding, mid live coding. I'm gonna have to be starting to do like minority port, and I don't have the tools for that. Anyways, that was my little heart attack for the day. Yeah, so let's talk about Vue. I've personally never done any Vue. I think I might
Mhm.
have installed like with their create, I forget what it's called, but like, kind of like create React app they had was something like that. I think I installed it, and I loaded up whatever the demo site was, but I never did any Vue. And I'll drop a link to, I mean, I'm sure there's some folks that have done Vue, but let me find it here. Vue. There we go. I'll drop a link to Vue there. It's another front end is framework, but what is it exactly? Like, it came on the scene after. I think it definitely came after React, but I think in between other things like Svelte and stuff, which came later, I believe.
Yeah, so it's the front end framework middle child. I think Evan started building it in 2014. I think it went live in 2015. Actually, I have a Vue sticker with the date on it. Yeah, 2014 was when it was officially started. But yeah, there's a documentary that Honeypot did on YouTube where they're interviewing Evan and he's telling the story of Vue. It's a fantastic watch. I highly recommend that. My summation of that is that he saw Angular was doing some cool stuff, but there were parts he didn't like. He saw React was doing some cool stuff, but there were parts he didn't like. So Vue is just kind of was his hybrid brainchild.
Okay, cool. Gotcha. Yeah, because I can't remember, because I haven't really followed his tech journey at all, but I think I might have listened on, it was either Syntax FM or something. Did he used to work on the Angular team? I can't remember.
I don't remember if he was specifically on the Angular team. I know he was working at Google doing something big brained that go way over my head. But then that was kind of when he started working on Vue, if I remember correctly. He goes into it all in the documentary. Honeypot makes great documentaries. Definitely recommend picking it up.
I'm definitely going to check that out. There's a few people who have been dropping documentaries lately. I know there was a Svelte documentary that went out recently too. If you want to get your framework history, grab some popcorn and hunker down for the evening with your favorite snack. I've done other like libraries, like I've done like handlebars and stuff in the past and a bit of Backbone, but like most of my more recent stuff has been like since 2016 I've been doing React. So that's pretty much like the main framework, or any framework or library I should say, but any framework that's using React, like that's typically where I've been comfortable, but I'm always up for learning other stuff. I don't know if you can speak to like maybe what some of the differences are. Like I mean it's still components, like pretty much all the frameworks go with components, because it just makes sense. I wonder like what are some things that might be different from React, I don't know if you can speak to that or not.
For me, what I've always liked about Vue compared to React is that the analogy my mentors always told me is that React can be a little bit like the Wild West in that there's 100,000 ways to do everything twice. Vue is just a little more opinionated in how some things are done. Not everything, not a lot of stuff. They're still very conscious of trying to stay out of your way. But yeah, they had like, for me at least, they just had just enough like opinions to remove decisions I wouldn't have to make. And I'm all for removing decisions I have to make.
I know what you're saying. Like when I first started off, state management was Redux, and like that's what you did. And the GraphQL got popular as well. I've never used Apollo, but I think Apollo provides state management within GraphQL. I'm not sure about that. But there's other kinds of state management libraries that came around, like Zustan, which I know you were using when I was contributing to your project for protege.dev there. There's like just a bunch of them. So I know what you mean, where you can have this decision paralysis. I can't say it. Paralysis. Is that right? Yeah. My head's a little foggy today. I'm getting over some kind of head cold. If I look angry at some point, it's because it feels like my head's about to explode. So it's not you. Just getting that out of the way.
I think Amy Shackles in the chat nailed it. Yeah. Vue's making the decisions for things that'll get you into trouble, but letting you make your own mischief. That's exactly what it is.
So own your mischief. That's cool. Yeah, and but I totally get. There's like, I can kind of think of it like something like Prettier too. It's not the same parallel, but you know what I mean? Like, when we used to do reviews before Prettier, you would have silly stuff in pull requests like, can you change that formatting and so on. And now Prettier came in, it's opinionated. You can configure it slightly, but I'm 100% okay with that. I'm like, even if I don't like, I was talking about this on the last stream, but like, even if I don't like the way Prettier formats some things, I don't really care because it's taken care of, it's automated, and it's been decided, you know? And like, I totally feel
Mhm.
that like I'm totally okay with some decisions being made for me. So
Yeah.
that's good.
I think one distinction I like between React and Vue is that, in React you can do, you can just have your functions at the top or the bottom of the file, but then you can also get fairly complex with some of your logic in the JSX. I apologize if my tech jargon is butchering what I'm trying to explain. It
Don't
makes
sweat
sense
it.
in
Don't
my
sweat
head.
it.
Vue does a better job at, well, I mean, like they make decisions for you. So if you want a function that does a thing when a button's clicked, they have a place where you set that function. It doesn't matter which component you're jumping into. If you're looking for a specific function, it's going to be in the
Yeah.
same spot, regardless which component you're in. And the
Okay.
same thing with like some of the lifecycle hooks and props and like data attributes and stuff like that. They just have in Vue
Okay.
2 at least this is abstracted a little bit in Vue 3, but in Vue 2 there's computed properties, there's methods, there's places where things go, and it's just a
Okay.
pattern that's easy to fall into and follow.
So that's one thing I was curious about, like, and we'll definitely get into some coding. But when Vue first started, did it support JSX right away? Like, I know it's support, like a lot of the frameworks just support JSX now, I think, just
Mhm.
because I think a lot of people like the ergonomics of JSX. That could be a spicy topic potentially.
I actually don't know if Vue supported JSX from the get go or not. I'm a huge proponent of whatever you give me from the get go, that's what I'm going to use. If it didn't support it and now it does, I don't know about it because I'm just rolling with what you gave me the first time.
When you're on a project, you keep it standard, I guess. Is JSX the default now, or is it still whatever? I don't even know what I guess is the default in Vue like just regular markup? Because the one thing I do know about Vue, and you can maybe speak to about this a bit more, is like your component kind of has everything in it. Like from the headline skimming I've done, like you can have your style tag, like HTML style. I
Yep.
don't know what the section is for HTML, what it's under, if it's under template or
Template.
something. And then I guess then you have your like a script section too.
Vue's single file component structure is you have your template, your script, and your style. And you can scope your style to only that component. But in the template, you're mostly just writing straight up HTML or, importing components and using there are some directives, and like you can do double handlebars to do like some
Okay.
dynamic properties in the template and stuff like that. But it's mostly
Ah,
it's
okay.
mostly just straight up HTML.
Okay. So I think that's kind of nice in the sense of like if somebody were to learn Vue, and they might have never used it. I mean,
Mhm.
if you're familiar at least with like, I would say the assumption is you're familiar somewhat with CSS, HTML, and JavaScript if you're going to be working in here. So there's
Mhm.
not much of a learning curve, I guess, aside from like you just need to know you break it up in those three sections, and then like all those skills you already had. There's nothing really new to learn like in terms of syntax, except for maybe like you said the double handlebars or whatever to embed some of the, I guess that's for the props and stuff. Or
It's a short leap from vanilla HTML, JavaScript, and CSS into a Vue single file component. The only parts of that leap are the Vue specific syntaxes.
I'll switch this to coding view just so folks can see. I loaded up this is the single file component. I found the documentation, so just to get a look at what it actually looks like, I'm just gonna zoom this in a bit. So it's like you were saying, so there's the script, the template for the markup, and then the style. And so it looks like, so in the script section, you can do ECMAScript modules, so ESM, so like I can do export something, even
Mm-hmm.
though there's, yeah, okay, so there's that. And then so here in this particular case, we're just returning a function called data that's returning a greeting in an object, I guess. And
Mm-hmm.
then we have the template area, like you were saying, for markup. And my highlighting is not working properly, but so here I mean, this is a small example, but so it's just got a paragraph here with a CSS class greeting. And this is the double handlebars you were talking about. And so this is how you put in props, I guess.
Yeah, that's how you would display dynamic content
Okay.
within an element. There's a couple of different syntaxes for, like listening to events or passing in props or a couple of view specific directives.
Looking at this, this seems pretty intuitive. It looks like in a component you have to have at least some data method, and that's what basically, I guess there's that convention, I guess, to allow you to have access to whatever's returned here, and then they're just not magically, but they're available because it's a data function here that's being exported.
Yeah, but so inside this export default, this is where all of your view script stuff is going to happen. The computed properties I mentioned, the methods, any view specific JavaScript stuff is going to live with inside this export default. The data function there that's being returned, that isn't required for every component. That's only required, if there's data it's going to be interacting with or updating or needs to read, then you'll have that there, so it'll be available. But it's not a requirement. You could have a component that has, that accepts props and has a computed property and stuff like that, but never actually does anything with it. So it may not need that data function itself.
Okay, cool. And Amy was asking us, I answered in the chat, but I'll just say it live on the stream. I was saying double handlebars. I meant to say double curly braces there for the syntax just over here. That makes sense. So you have the greeting CSS class here. So it's a dot greeting. So it's a class, and we're including it here. And from what I've read, whatever you have in styles here, it gets scoped to the component only. So like, if I wanted to use dot greeting outside of this, that wouldn't exist. Like it would be like it gets self-contained somehow. Like maybe, I don't know how the class name gets generated when it's compiled, but is that what's happening?
I don't think that's entirely accurate. As far as like declaring a class here and being able to use it outside of component, I don't know. I've never tried to do that. But like if you were to swap that greeting selector to just a p tag in its current state, that would affect any p tag in the project. If you, on that opening style tag, if you did space scoped at the end of it, that would scope it to only this component.
I didn't realize you had to specify a scope directly. Okay, so
that's nice. That's actually something I want to tinker with now, because I've never created a class here and tried to use it outside the component. I have accidentally styled elements from it not being scoped when I was specifically targeting an A tag or a list element or something like that. But I've never created a class here and tried to use it outside. It may actually self-scope in that direction. I've honestly never tried.
I guess if you, well, I mean, we can maybe test it later, but maybe if it's not scoped, maybe like with your your parent component, you could just have it global so that everything under it can have access. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll take a peek. We'll definitely jump into some more code here and try and build something out, because it'll be fun to just kind of tinker around. Is it worth going to the playground here to look at some stuff, or should we just go ahead and create a project, or what do you think? Or what do you want to do?
I'd say we just spin something up, start slinging some code.
All right, so let's do that. So I'm just going to come to VS Code. I have this on the screen, Viter. I Googled this because I've never done any Vue, and this appears to be like the standard VS Code extension. I didn't have to configure anything, but it appears to... I think it must give IntelliSense and a few other things. I'm just looking here. It gives the Vue language server here, it's saying. So that means like it'll be able to... I think that just means it'll be able to recognize the templates. Are they .vue files? Is that what they are? Or?
Yeah, .vue.
Amy's cracking me up in the chat. She's like, YOLO Mancy. I kind of like to YOLO it just because to me it feels a little more realistic, but it could also blow up in my face, but oh well.
I don't know if you know this, by the way, but I actually have YOLO tattooed on my knuckles.
Nice. Cool. All right. Well, that means that Drew is definitely on board. Okay, cool. I know these are just things I've been reading about, and I know like we use Vue at work in other projects that aren't even Vue, because it's a bundler that was built for Vue, I think, originally, but you can use in any other ones now. In terms of spinning up a project, we're going to work on how should we go about doing that. Are we just going to create a plain Vue app, or how are we going to go about this?
I think just in terms of being able to play with some of the Vue parts of stuff without having to deal with the boilerplate of creating a Vue app, I think the best thing would be to spin up a Nuxt app. Nuxt is just Vue. It's the Vue equivalent of React's Next. It comes with, so I told you earlier that I prefer Vue because it makes some decisions for me
Yeah.
that keep me from shooting myself in the foot. Nuxt is like that expanded even further. It comes with actually, if when you're spinning up a Nuxt app, you can configure like ESLint and Prettier, and do you want Tailwind or Tachyons, or like you can get
Okay.
all that stuff like out of the box. But then we'll
Oh, no
just be
way.
able
Okay.
to, yeah, we'll be able to just jump straight into writing some, Vue specific code.
So I loaded up the Nuxt.js site here. If folks want to check that out, just nuxtjs.org. And I found the installation instructions here. So they have something like create React app. So create dash Nuxt dash app. I'm just going to go to my dev folder here. All right. So I'm going to run this and I'm going to have some fun here. We'll just call it Vue with Drew, because I'm still chuckling every time I say that because it wasn't planned for it to rhyme. But
I need to go get that
so
domain and just start a course now.
you should seriously don't sleep on that. It would be funny if you built the course without Vue, though. That would be kind of like, yeah, well, we
Vue
decided to
with
go
Drew, and then
with
I just teach React.
Caitlin in the chat saying the rhyme makes her happy too. So yeah, no, that's cool. Hey, Caitlin, thanks for stopping by. Just gonna say hello there. Cool, cool. I ran npx create dash nuxt dash app. From the instructions there, it says you just give the project name, and then it says it needs to install create Nuxt app. I'm gonna press enter because the default's yes, and then this will.
All right, so this will do
Hopefully
some
not too long.
stuff. Yeah, it doesn't take too terribly long. It's going to ask you some questions about the config stuff I mentioned earlier. What do you want a CSS library, project
Okay.
name, all that fun stuff.
I am a fan of TypeScript, but we'll just keep it simple for now, I guess, and just go plain JavaScript just for our purposes. I'm gonna roll the dice and just go with old school npm. Okay, so this is what you were saying about, and this is kind of nice actually. You don't have to after the fact say, okay, I'm gonna go install this or this. So it gives you a lot of popular choices for the UI. I know you're pretty familiar with Tailwind. Is that what we should go ahead and install, or?
Yeah, I'm a Tailwind fanboy, so
Okay.
if
I'm
you give me the option,
still
I'm checking. I'm choosing Tailwind every time.
promise base HT. Okay. I guess just go with Axios just for like fetch stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. ESLint. Yes. Prettier. Yes. Sure. You know what? I'm gonna take the whole buffet. Forget the commit lint for now. But okay. We'll go with Jest. I'm most familiar with that. I just want to say this is super nice that it's giving you all these options right here, because a lot of other times I've had to do it's like you can still create the app, but then you have to do an npm install of, okay, I'm going to use this and this. So it's kind of nice. And obviously there's a set amount of things they're giving you, but I still think that's a nice set in terms of experience. Okay, so I guess what do you want to do in terms of just for doing the
You can
demo
go
today?
universal. Yeah, I don't think it'll really matter here. I think here I usually go static.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a pretty cool company that does like static Jamstack hosting. I can't remember their name, but I use them for all my personal projects.
Thank you for that segue. Yes, I work at Netlify, so yeah, we will definitely be working with that. Cool. I'll just skip continuous integration for now. Yes, git. Okay, so we'll let it install those packages there. My connection is pretty fast, so hopefully it won't take too long. So, okay, so while this is setting up, like you were saying, Nuxt.js is like Next.js, but for Vue. That's kind of the TLDR? Okay.
Yeah. It has, directory-based routing, server-side rendering, all that fun stuff.
Okay, cool. All right. And yeah, so yeah, once this gets set up, we'll just start off with, well, we'll see. I guess we can run it. I imagine there's some boilerplate that's already there to like have like a first page to look at or something. Yeah, cool. Yeah. All right. So we're all done here. Okay. I'm just going to open up the project now. I guess first thing, if you're cool with it, is just, can we kind of look at like the folder structure on the side to see kind of what's going on over there? I'm just going to zoom in a bit for folks. This we can ignore. That's for Husky. That's pre-commit stuff. That's part of all the stuff they set up. So starting from the top here, we've got components, which are Vue components. Essentially, these are, is this where you put all your components, or is it just for, all right, so this one here, it's got a big chunk of
so this would be all your reusable components. The next folder down, pages, those are actually Vue components as well. They're just in the different folder to represent routes versus components.
Okay, cool, cool. So yeah, so if we're looking at a page here, okay, so this has some tutorial component. I guess the first thing for me that I find interesting here is I didn't have to import the component. When you're in React, you would have to say, I
Hmm.
need to import the tutorial component, and then you would use the JSX to put it. Is that happening because it's in the global components, or it just knows to look in any components folder to pull that in, or?
I'm not entirely sure. I know, like, if you were to create a base folder inside of components or preface something with base, Nux would know about that and it would be available globally. But it looks
Okay.
like I think if you look in the Nux config, there may be an option
Ah,
for
okay.
it.
Let's take a peek here.
That sounds right in that Nux just knows about if you create a component, Nux just knows about it. Yeah, right there. Components
Okay.
true.
Auto
There.
import. Okay. Cool. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna drop that link here. Okay. No, that's kind of nice. Okay, so that I think that's kind of nice that it just finds auto detects them and imports them. So that's cool. So that explains that in terms of the page, and that keeps these templates or these component files a lot cleaner. So we've got the component here that we're pulling from here, which is the tutorial view, which will render whatever in this template. And if we come back here, it's doing an export default, and it's got a name which says index page, which I'm guessing is the name of, I would assume the name of the page that we're gonna render here.
Mhm.
Run
It's
this on
it's
us.
only it's index page versus just index because there's a I forget what it's called, but basically Vue yells at you if you create a page that's only one name or something weird like that. It
Okay.
yelled at me a couple weeks ago for something around only using one word in the name. I forget
Okay.
what the exact error was.
Okay. But it looks like a naming convention. So if I created another
Hmm.
page, potato, I would have name potato page.
Yeah. Let me pull up a project and see.
Da-da.
Where's my
Um,
VS
B,
Code?
B, B1 Mine's making me crack up. Yeah, it's actually the little emojis are llamas on our names there because there's no alpaca emoji, but it says it's equivalent. But yeah, it's alpacas. The alpaca head over here that I'm just lowering here, that's an alpaca from, surprisingly, like I'm in Montreal in Canada, and there's a lot of alpaca farms. Like if you just go slightly out of the city, there's a
Mhm.
lot of alpaca wool being sold and a lot of alpaca tours. So if you ever in Montreal with young kids and you have no idea what to do with them, just go take them to watch alpacas and they'll be happy.
So I
Uh,
checked out a local project, and it looks like you don't have to have the in the name. You don't have to have like index page or about page. That's probably just a
okay,
pattern they're trying to like nudge you to take, but it doesn't
okay.
look like it's a requirement.
Cool, cool. And yeah, so we'll start up the project shortly here. So static folder is just any static assets, like it has there the fav icon and so on. That's pretty standard in all the other ones. This one looks interesting to me. The store. So this is where you would have global state stored.
This is Vuex. It's the default for Nuxt in state management. If you were to spin up a Vue 3 project, the new recommendation is Pina, which is, similar, just different, better, or whatever. I don't know the differences between the two. Obviously, they look almost the same to me,
Okay.
but one's recommended versus the other. So you would have files in here. You would have like a global one to manage, like as their modal open,
Okay.
so on and so forth for whatever specific thing you're building.
Cool, 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 cool. All right. And then the test folder is for tests, obviously. So I picked Jest there. So what's going on here is it's importing a component. The mount here, I guess, is like a test renderer in React. So that loads up the component and then you can test whatever you want to against there. That seems pretty straightforward to me. And pretty much the rest of here is just all config for like linting, prettier testing,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. I don't think we really need to go
Yep.
into those. I will open the package JSON though, just to see how we start things here. So it looks like the dev command. I'm just gonna run that. So I just have an alias for npm run. It's nr. So nr dev here. And I am not interested in participating right now. Okay, so cool. One, I don't know what the Tailwind viewer is, but I'm sure it's related to Tailwind. But let's open up the site here. 1 sec.
I've never used the Tailwind viewer either, but I want to say if like it's just a page where you could see like any like custom Tailwind configuration you have. Like if you set up custom colors or fonts or stuff like that, it would be available there.
Gotcha. Cool. So we see the page loaded up. This is the index page, and then so it's saying to get started, remove the components tutorial view and start coding in pages.index.view. Okay, we can go ahead and do that and just take a peek here, and then we can build whatever, we can just kind of YOLO it. So, okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this. So right away, it's telling me I need to have at least something in there. Like I can't have it empty because the page won't render. So that's good to know. I've got GitHub Copilot here giving me something. Let's see here. If I refresh this. Okay. This is a simple. Okay, cool. So there we go. I'm not sure why it didn't hot reload, or maybe that's something. But anyways. Okay, cool. So yeah, so we can start building out stuff here. And then the index page, like you said, is that just the title? Like if we come back to, let me close this. Why is it loading? Oh, whoops! I'm in a wrong. That's something I'm working. It's something I'm working on. I didn't realize I had 2 VS Codes open. Okay, so the index page, that is where is that used? Because like it's not the name of the page, like the title. Is that really just internally for Vue? That or...
Yeah, I think that's just internally, and I want to say you can actually get away. I don't think the name attribute there is required.
Okay, we can find out.
Because if you don't put it there, I think it defaults to name index. Okay, so this is the error I was telling you about, because the file name is just index.vue, so that's why it's yelling at you. But the name index page, if there's a name there, that's what it calls it. If there's not one, it defaults to the file name.
Okay, gotcha.
This is just an ESLint config. You could turn this off and it be fine.
Okay, cool. All right, so we got this all running here. I'd be kind of curious to. So this is just markup here, right? This is not JSX, right? It's just regular HTML, or?
Yep.
Okay, so if I wanted to, like, let's start off, not easy, but let's start off light. Let's work into it. Say I wanted to populate some dynamic data in here, like maybe let's go back to like what the greeting was here. So like if I did, I think you said it was the double curly. So if I did something like this. So now if I want to get that in there, do I add to the export default here that data function like they had before?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it may yell at you that the name's not at the top. Okay. So there's some lint conventions. So there's like data's usually always at the top, props are usually at the top. There's a specific for the Vue linter rules. There's rules for which ones go where. I usually don't have it configured enough to where it yells at me that often, but sometimes it will.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we got this dynamic data. So already I know this is nothing big, but this is already interesting to me. So we've got the hello there loading up. Okay, so this is one way to get dynamic data in there, right? So if I wanted to do like, for example, I don't know, let's say YOLO, which is a horrible name, but let's just say YOLO. And then I could come over here and then I could just go like this, and then this should get picked up as well, right? Okay, yeah, cool. Okay, so this is just
the things inside the data function, inside the return, they can be more than strings too. They can be objects, arrays, whatever variable type you need it to be.
Okay, so I could do this, and then I could just say, I don't know. I'm giving bad names here. Naming is hard, folks. Okay, so if I do greeting and then word, and then I come in here and can I just go greeting.word? Is that how you go about doing it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so you can have complex data in there. That's interesting to know. And I guess that makes sense, because if you wanted to do stuff like if you had an array of information, you might want to like loop through it and so on.
Yeah, and something like that, like if you were bringing in an array of products or whatever, you may want to stick that in data, or maybe there's a form on the page. So
Okay.
you would have a form object in here, and then inside of that would be where you would put like, name, email, whatever the options are. And then there's a view convention
Okay.
to directly tie to that. But yeah, you can get,
Okay.
I've seen data objects here get pretty unwieldy.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. So yeah. So if we do this here now let's up the ante a bit, I guess. So like if we
Hmm.
do like a classic counter example for something, like if can we
Uh-huh.
do that? Like I know there's the global state there, but can we do that? Can we have like data that changes in here as well?
That's actually kind of the default. That's actually the pattern you would want to use. If there's a data
Okay.
object that you would want to be updated, you would want it to live there
Okay.
inside that data function.
Okay, gotcha. So if we so like let's just come and create a button here, and then is it the same as like JSX where you do on click, or how do you go about?
It would be at click.
Okay.
The view syntax would
And
be at click.
okay, I got Copilot helping me here again. Okay. So all right, and then let's just give this a name, increment button, and then let's just I know Ben's in the chat still maybe. I don't know if this is the best one to use, but the output is accessible. It'll tell screen readers that it's being updated. Let's just do a div. Okay, so I've got this here, and if I come back, okay, what is my button not styled? Did I do that wrong? Ben was saying just a little accessibility tip for folks. Yeah, so the output it's a live
Oh, wow,
region
I
by
didn't even know
default.
that.
Yeah, so it's
That's
a
sick.
I know we're doing a demo of Vue, but I like to throw in some good practices or some nuggets about stuff like
Mhm.
that, even when we're building out stuff.
On that note,
Okay,
your button needs type equals button.
yeah, yeah, thank you. Uh,
If we're going accessible here.
yeah, is it telling me? Okay, sure. I'll save it, and I'm guessing it'll fix it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Linty. Okay. I'm not sure why I guess the button by default loses all style because we're using Tailwind. Is that why?
Yep.
Okay. So I've never used Tailwind aside from a hello world. But I know we're not talking about Tailwind so much, but if I wanted to just style this pretty quickly as a button, what
Yeah, I
classes
would
do I
just
throw on
do
here?
class BG hyphen gray hyphen 200,
Okay.
and then you can do like a P dash 2 on it or something.
So that's background gray of whatever 200 is and padding a 2
Yeah,
rem or 2 whatever the
2 rem.
okay. All right. So why is that not doing that? Let's see here. Is there any errors going on? There's some kind of error going on. What's it saying?
What's it
Let me
yelling
clear
about?
that. Let me refresh it here. Okay, no, it seems to be okay. It added the padding, but what's this error down here? Hold on a sec. Property or method counter. Oh, it's because I don't have the method defined yet. Okay, so I need to do increment, which I imagine is just a method on data, or do I put that somewhere else?
um, well, so there's two things we need to add here. You need to add the counter into the data function, probably default it to 0 or whatever.
And just in the
Um,
data here being returned, like that?
yeah. And so one thing you actually can do on line 3, rather than doing at click increment, you can just do counter plus plus.
Okay, so at click counter plus plus?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And that still stays in quotes, or does that go into
Yeah,
squeeze?
that's fine. Yep.
Okay,
So
so
that's one thing Vue does differently than React,
okay,
unless that there's very specific instances where you would use curly braces in there, but usually it's just like so there's like at click, but then there's also like I can't think of the other pattern. There's other Vue directives that it's always ever going to be the double quotes. It's not going to be. I know React does the double brackets when you want it to be a function.
okay, cool. So it's working. We still don't have some styling, but I'm not sweating that too much right now.
Did the padding, but not the color.
Yeah, maybe
G
that color
gray.
doesn't exist.
Try
Let's
gray
see.
with an A.
Oh
Thought
yeah,
they
sorry.
had.
No, it's because I'm Canadian, so it's
Well, they
GREY.
used to. I don't know what the current default is, but there used to be like there was gray with an A, which was like a warmer gray, and then there used to be gray
Okay.
with an E, which was a cooler gray. And I guess they got rid of one
Okay.
of them.
I guess they went
Hi,
with
Amy.
GRAY, but yeah, see you later. Amy. Yeah, no, it's kind of funny because the guy who created Tailwind's from Canada, so I guess he didn't make the mistake of putting GREY. I could see the GitHub lighting up with like the gray doesn't work. So there's some interesting things here I see already. I was like, I mean, that's glad we got the Tailwind sorted out. That's just me using British or Imperial stuff. So the counter here, when you do plus plus, does that mean everything in the data is reactive? And that just happens out of the box.
Yep, that's just
Okay.
Vue being nice to you.
Okay, no, that's nice to have. And this is like older stuff I used to use, but like you were talking about composite data, I think. Was that, did you say that
Computed
before?
properties.
Computed, thank you. Because I used to use something called Knockout when I used to do .NET and stuff. So like you could say another property, like it could be called, I don't know, like if I did like better counter, and it's like counter plus, like YOLO or whatever, like I basically create a property that updates based on other properties. That's
Yeah.
what you're talking about?
Yeah, so that would be a computed property. And if you wanted, we can make one of those right now. Get rid of the better counter line. This actually lives outside of the data. So
Okay.
the other Vue specific things, they each live in their own object. So yeah, you'll create a new line. You'll do
Okay.
computed colon curly braces.
Okay.
If you wanted to do like a double counter or something like this, and then you could just return this dot counter times 2 or plus 2. It doesn't matter. Then anytime it sees counter update, computed is going to recompute itself and update itself as well.
Okay, so if I come here and then do double count, it's complaining about this. Okay, so if I come back here, okay, yeah, no, that's really nice. That's some stuff that it's nice having that out of the box. That's super handy too, because like there's a lot of times where you have your state and then you have to build these other things. In React, I would have to say, okay, when I render, I'm gonna put the count times 2 or whatever, and like it's still, you still have to do that, but it's kind of encapsulated, and then the view just ends up being a lot cleaner, like I don't have to put that logic in here. I'm just saying, go get me this value.
I was actually just working on one on Hey Gumball last night where I had a computed property that it was checking like if one string included this string, but then also if the lengths of those two strings were the same. And I forget there was something else involved in the computation, but there were basically like 4 different conditionals it was checking against to decide what the computed property would be. And then, the result of that changes the UI accordingly.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, okay, cool. So just messing around here. I'm just being silly, but yeah, no, that's really nice. I like that because we kind of went away from computed properties at some point, and then they seem to be coming back. Like I haven't used it yet, but Solid.js, which is a React-like framework, it's one of my coworkers built it. I think they have the notion of computed properties in Solid.js too.
What I love about it again is just that there's a specific place it goes. So if I know I'm looking at something in the UI and I know that's the result of a computed property, there's no like scrolling up and down. Is it here? Or is it there? It's just, I know it's in this computed object and it's just there.
I'm laughing because I was telling you at the start there that my batteries died on my keyboard. My mouse finally just said it needed to charge, so I just had to plug it in. At least it's not like, just to show the mouse here, it's Logitech MX Master, and it's not like the Apple ones where you have to stick it and like hang it upside down so you can't use it. So I can actually still use it, which is kind of nice. But I'm not sure why today is the day everything decided to say I'm out of juice.
It's because it knew I was coming on. I keep a trail of Murphy's Law following me, so sorry about that.
It's all good. My headphones though are fully charged, so that's good. I'm glad we're going through these things here. I know some of these things might be some basic stuff for folks who might be familiar with Vue, but I think it's good to check these things out. So typically, like for stuff like the click here, like I mean the counter is, I guess, a trivial example, but is this a common thing that people will do usually, like, or do they typically wrap it in? Or?
It'll typically get stuck in a method unless it's like something simple that's toggling something either on or off. It'll usually go into a method where there's you click the button, which does a thing, and then fires off a request to do something, and then all the strings of stuff that comes behind that. That would definitely live in a method.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right, so we've got that going on, and so I mean, there's the at click, but I imagine you can do other stuff like at focus and so on. And okay, yeah, I got the TypeScript
Yeah,
IntelliSense.
there's at click, at focus. So if this was a form, you could do at submit, and then there's also at submit.prevent, which just includes the prevent default for
if
you.
you're doing client side stuff. Cool. Yeah, no, TypeScript's showing me. We're not using TypeScript, but because of VS Code, it's showing us all the TypeScript stuff. So, okay, so it's pretty much all the other stuff here. So that's just one of the other things to note about the syntax. So it's at whatever the DOM event is.
So I think another thing that you may enjoy seeing is Vue gives you two-way data binding out of the box as well. Let's say we wanted to be able to. So let's add an H1 in here. And you can add the greeting back and give it a default greeting, but then we can actually add an input that will go back and change that if we want to as well.
That makes sense. Okay. All right, cool. Let's do that. Okay, so we've got the greeting here. Like you said, let's put the greeting
I think you're
missing.
you're closing H1.
Thank you. Yes, I am.
Yeah, so you can add your greeting back in there. You can set it, give it a default.
Okay, hello Vue. Okay, so let's refresh this. And okay, so hello Vue, and our counter's still working. Okay, so we got our default greeting. Okay, so now you're saying we can put an input to change the greeting, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's do that. All right, let's do change greeting. And then let's put an input.
So vModel is how you just get the two-way data binding out of the box. So I know in React, you used to would have to do, I forget the pattern now, but there'd be like an arrow function and then, something event.target.value or something like that. And with Vue, it's just vModel and the name of the attribute you want to update. And if you go back, this will actually show you another thing too. So that's vModel. I use vModel all the time. And 90% of Hey Gumball is just vModels talking to each other.
I'm just going to add some style in here for a second. I've just got terrible names right now. Flexi. Just really bad names today. I think it's because my head cold's just breaking my brain. All right, so let's do Flexi, and let's just do... Yeah, okay, that's exactly what I wanted to do. Thank you. GitHub Copilot. Well, I'll get rid of the align center, but... Okay, why did that not do anything? .flexi... Class flexi, that should be that. Okay.
There's something about output that doesn't do it. So we could tailwind it. You just do class flex flex call. I think it's flex hyphen call.
Okay.
So you have to do flex and flex call.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So first you need to say, so that's the display flex and the direction. I think I might just not be applying it to the right place, but
well, it should be working. That's what I would have tried first.
Let's see here. It's not applying it.
I'm doing all this JavaScript stuff and CSS stuff.
Yeah, no, but even when
that's the story of my developer life, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I feel like it's not picking it up for some reason, because that should be display flex and then flex direction column.
Check out the dev tools or inspect the elements, see what that's giving us.
Yeah. Okay. Why did my volume go? There we go. Okay.
Are your headphones about to die now?
No.
Actually, let me check mine. I've been going all morning.
No, when my keyboard died before, I have it mapped to have the function keys used for debugging and stuff. Like, so instead of volume, it does F12, which is what I used to open here. But okay, so let's take a peek at the elements, and let's just go here. Let's just look at... Okay, so it didn't apply the CSS class.
Did you put it back on the template?
Should be there.
So it's not applying that?
I'm just going to put in some text here to make sure it's updating. The template's not updating. Interesting.
And we don't have any console errors? So playable label input.
I'm just gonna restart the server. Maybe it's just something. Maybe something went bonkers. Okay, it's loading up. Something's going on. Interesting. There we go. I don't know. There was a hiccup somewhere. So, okay. So anyways,
computer's got to compute.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So we can change the greeting here. So, okay. So the first things are, it says hello view, which is the default greeting. But if I start typing, okay, so it updates up there, as like you're saying. So it gets connected through the model. So through is awesome. Okay, cool. Nice. Okay, and so looking at the v dash model, so v dash is for view, I imagine, and model just means anything within the data method here.
Yeah. So I don't know the exact specific breakdown of how it works, but v model will essentially give you access to anything inside of data. And again, this could be nested too. So if you had like form, and then inside the form there was email, you could do v model form.email, so on and so forth.
Okay, gotcha. No, so that's nice. So I like the ergonomics of this. It's like there's a lot of boilerplate I don't need to do because of this. I'm not saying this to trash talk another framework, but like just to, the parallel to React would be, if I modify it, then I would probably have to set state or however the form value gets updated, and then you would render that value again in those two spots. This ties in again to the reactivity of it. So that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat and handy. Okay. Oh, and we don't need this extra @ here. Okay. I'll just put a BG on the button here just because, or the text, sorry. Just okay, it's not doing it. I'm not too worried about the CSS right now. I got somebody new in the chat here saying, I just recently started learning JavaScript. Is there any difference between double quotes and single quotes, or are they both for strings? So LJuby_Brat69, they both work for strings. It depends what you're doing. So like if you had single quotes for the string and then you had a single quote in the actual piece of text, you would have to escape it. But if you did double quotes, then you could use the single quote inside. Or if you use template strings, which are the backticks, then you wouldn't have to worry about either of those. And also thank you for saying hi on the stream. Okay, cool. So no, that's a lot of cool stuff here. And I know this is probably just run-of-the-mill stuff for you, but this is, I like all these things. It just, the ergonomics really feels good. Like I feel like I'm already pretty productive, even though I barely know Vue.
And I mean, in terms of the stuff that I tinker and build with, this is like literally 95% of what I'm bringing to the table. Oh, I need to build this thing. It's mostly going to be these patterns here. I think I want to show you slots and props in Vue. I think those would be very handy. I think that's probably one of the, for me, it's like the chef's kiss of Vue, especially if you've ever tried to, I know like React, you can do like the children thing within a component, and then you can stick stuff there. Slots in Vue are just beautiful. So let's do this. Let's create a component, and we'll just pass in the counter and the computed and the double counter we have. You can call it counter display or whatever it needs to be. Counter value dot view.
Counter display dot view. Okay, cool. And in here, so I need, at a minimum, I need the template, right?
You'll need the template, and you will need the script tag, because we'll want to we want to declare the props we're passing into it.
Okay, cool. So I guess the first part is the template.
Yeah. So the first part is, so just throw a div in here because we can only have one root element. And then inside this div, we're gonna pass two values two separate ways, to kind of to show you how things can get passed around or reused or passed around. I guess here we can do a p tag that will render out the counter.
Okay. And then just like this, like,
yeah.
Or is it different? Okay. And then,
yep, just the same. And then in your second p tag, we'll add a second p tag, but rather than putting double curlies with counter, you'll just do angle brackets slot.
Okay. Like this? You mean, or what do you
Yeah.
mean angle bracket? Yeah, okay. Yo, really like that?
Well, you'll need the closing angle bracket on the first p tag.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Sorry, it's not an attribute in the.
Yeah, the slot element can actually be self-closing if you want it to be. It
Okay,
doesn't
yeah.
matter. It works either way.
I usually self-close too. Yeah, no, keep it tidy.
Yeah. So then inside your script tag, you want to do the export default.
Oh, what did it just do? Wow. Well, okay, slow down, GitHub Copilot. I should have turned that off before the stream.
And so inside of here, you'll do props colon curly boys. And then inside here, you'll do, I think it had it right with counter. So you'll do counter colon, and then you'll open up an object. Yeah. And then you'll do type number. And then you can actually get rid of default and do required true.
Okay.
So you can set defaults in there. You could actually also build in some validators on this. So it's not
Okay.
quite TypeScript, but if you pass in a prop with the wrong value, it'll yell at you to keep you from doing that.
Okay. Cool.
And so this is everything we'll need for this component to be able to accept this prop and display it. So now back in our index, let's replace your two outputs with our counter. I know we're breaking the output thing is rad. I'm going to have to read up more on that.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Yes. So you'll put your counter display here, and then to pass in a prop, you'll just do colon counter, colon whatever you called the prop on the inside of the component, and then you'll just pass in counter.
Okay.
So that's how you pass it in. But then, so get rid of the self-closing, and then we're actually going to utilize slots to pass in the other one. So here you'll do double curly boys, double counter, and then close counter display.
Okay, double. What's it not like in here? Counter. What's it complaining about? Invalid end tag. Hold on a sec. Counter display colon counter equals counter. Oh, is it because is this supposed to just be counter display, right? Like is it colon counter like that? Like a space? Because like okay, yeah, that's why. Yeah, okay, so just to be clear, so counter display is the component we're importing, which is what we built out there. This colon is a syntax to say a prop, I guess?
Yeah. Well, so if you needed to be dynamic, counter is going to be updating as you click the button. So we want it to be a dynamic, and actually I'll think if it's a number. If the prop you're passing in is just a string that's never going to change, you don't have to put the colon at the front. But if it's a dynamic value that's coming in or a number, then you'll need it there.
All right, cool. So we got that. Let me just get rid of this. Okay, so that looks good, I think. So I'm going to save that, and let's just head on over and see what's going on here. So increment. Okay, so it's doing the counter, but I don't see the double count.
Where's our double counter?
It's the computed down here. Oh, it's double count. Sorry, not double counter. Okay. So now, okay, there we go. And it also hot reloaded and it preserved the original state there. That's kind of nice. Okay. So that's working like it was before.
And so now, those are two different ways. So the slot is what I use when I'm spinning up a fresh project. I usually build out a base component library for a base button, base heading. They're usually just pretty dumb components that just have a slot in the middle. Okay. So like my base button component, it always has like, that's where I define what my different buttons can be, like, your primary, secondary, blah, blah. Okay. And then you can actually emit click events. So I can now use that button, I'll just use the component base button, and then whatever the button I need to say, I just put in between the tags like that. Okay. To render the text. It's got to get all the styles that are baked into the component, so I don't have to worry about that every time. And then the button itself is actually going to emit a click event, so I can then listen for that click event at the level where I'm using it and do whatever and make whatever I need to do happen. This is what's referred to as a default slot. This is the same version of curly brackets children in React. It's that same concept. You can also do named slots, and I think named slots is where Vue definitely takes the cake for me, because you can have, if you ever need like more than one, you
Hmm.
want them to land in very specific places of the component they're going in, you can do slot name equals original counter, slot name equals double counter, and then
Yeah.
you can use nested template tags inside your component to specify what goes where, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I was gonna ask you if you had more than one slot, what do you do? So naming it makes
Mhm.
complete sense. Can we do the same thing, but let's do it with name slots this time?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let me just put this like that for now and just copy this here. Da, 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 da. Okay, so now if we wanted name slots, so like I'm gonna put two slots, and is it just a question of giving it a name attribute here, or
Yeah.
okay? Okay, so I'll do counter one, and then
And
let's
this
just
comes
do
in, slots save me so much time when it comes to building like, I guess, higher level like layout components. I have a dashboard view on Hey Gumball where I know there's like
hmm
a left and a right. And
okay.
that's used across a lot of different pages, but I want them to, I want them all to react the same to different screen sizes and stuff. So the slots in it are just left and right. And then,
Okay.
as needed, I just stick what I need to in the appropriate slot, and it just works.
Yeah, no, gotcha. And that's nice because like you can you can pass in the stuff in the particular name slots, and then you can totally modify how that component that's consuming them, like if somebody's like, oh no, the design's off, or like, yeah, totally change that, as long the slot names will follow the what you're passing in. So that's
Yep.
definitely super nice, because yeah, in React you can have the children, which do you can do whatever you want with the children. You can do slots in the sense like you can give a prop and just call it like, I don't know, like if I called it counter one and counter two as props, and you can pass a component in there. I won't say it's clunky, but it's not as obvious maybe because it's not a native
Yeah.
thing. It's just, I think people figured out that, oh well, they're just props, so I can pass in whatever. So that's why you can just pass in a
Mhm.
component.
That's
Okay,
what I love
so
about this, is like they had the forethought to say like, people are going to want this. This is going to be a thing. It's just nice to have. It's easy to read. I could not look at it for 6 months, and when I come back, I'm going to be like, okay, I know exactly what this is doing.
gotcha. Okay, so now if I want to use the name slot, so we've got it all set up in counter display 2 there. In
Mhm.
where I'm actually going to be sending the slots here. So now if I want to pass the 2 slots, so how do I go about that? Is it double curly boys again, but then like something like
No,
name
so this would be, you'll have two nested template tags, and
like
then
that? Oh, it's
yep,
already doing it. Okay. Damn you, GitHub Copilot. You're
yep. So it's
all
taking all the
right.
fun away from you.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
actually a shorthand for this too. You could replace
Okay.
slot equals counter one with just hashtag counter one, and that's the same thing.
Oh, okay.
It
So like I
doesn't
can
matter
just
which one you do. That it'll save you a few keystrokes here and there.
like that.
That should work. It works in Vue 3. I don't. We may find out if it works or not in Vue 2
Okay. Let's see
shortly.
here. Oh, appears to. Yep. It's all
Yep.
good.
So that's the same thing, but with slots
Okay.
instead.
Yeah, it's definitely shorter, but this would probably make me, I mean, unless I'm doing view all the time, this probably wouldn't seem as obvious to me versus the slot. But it's good to know that
Hmm.
there's the two syntaxes, and I guess it's probably something on your project, like you could decide which one you go with, and I'm sure there's probably a
Hmm.
linting rule you can enable or whatever.
Yeah, for
Okay, no,
sure.
this is super cool. I didn't realize what time it is. We've got like 10 minutes left here. It's like time's been flying, which is a good thing. That always just means we're having fun, or it's a good conversation, or both.
For sure. So I think that the last thing I want to show you, which
Yeah.
is be very simple, is the methods I talked about earlier.
Okay. Yeah.
If you wanted to write an entire function that did a thing, just below computed, you would, same syntax you have with computed. You would do
Okay.
methods,
Okay.
and then there it's giving it to you right there. Increment this counter.
GitHub Copilot.
That's it. If you needed a function that like submitted a form off to the Netlify form thing, but then also updated something in ConvertKit or whatever, that's where you could write
Okay.
all this function. And then back in your template, you would just say at click equals increment.
Okay. Yeah. So I would come here and then just do this
Mm-hmm.
minus the brackets there. And if I come here, whoops, increment. Yeah. So if I come back here and it's still working like it was. Okay, cool.
I just thought of one more thing we can crash through real quick.
Oh
For
yeah, yeah.
loops in the Vue template. In the data thing, just create something with an array and just put a couple strings in it.
So let's just go into the data here and then let's just do, I don't know, posts or pots, whatever. Okay, posts and then, okay, GitHub Copilot help me because we're wrapping up the stream. Okay, so,
Yeah.
so we got 3 posts here now. Okay.
So now below the label, let's say you want to do an unordered list with an li inside of that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure if I should turn off GitHub Copilot during streams or not. It is handy, but it's kind of spoiling some of the fun. But okay, is this what we do?
Yep, that's what you would do. So what this is doing, so the v-for is just shorthand. That's the v pattern for creating a for loop in your template. So you could do post in post, and then there you could do post.title. And the one thing it's actually missing is you need to give it a key. So you would need to do :key equals whatever you called it, post.id.
Do I have to do it in curly braces too?
No, you would do :key equals and then double quotes.
And then this would be post.id. That's nice. I love it when the linting just guides you. I'm all for automating a lot of this stuff. Okay, so this should, in theory, show us a bunch of titles of blog posts. Cool.
Yep.
All right.
And that's probably the most, or at least for me, the most used patterns in Vue.
I can definitely see that because like a lot of times in React, you're just mapping over a lot of stuff and then you're accessing other properties. So yeah, so we got about 5 minutes left. So I'll just kind of summarize kind of what we did here. So we worked with some data. We didn't touch on global state, which is fine. That's like a whole other topic. But essentially on a component in the scripts, you export some default object, and in there's a data method, and that's where you get all your data, or that's one place you can get your data. All the information that's in there, like the greeting, the counter, or the posts, all that data there is dynamic, right? Like even if you're not doing anything with it, it's dynamic by default, and then it updates it automatically. Same with the counter, like we saw. With the array of posts, you could do the same thing. It's probably just a little different because you're updating an item or adding an item. And then we got the computed here. So the computed are methods, and then like the method name is the property, like so like double counter like we saw up here, or double count. And in there you can basically do whatever you want. So you can compose a property out of other properties.
And the computers always have to return something. That one bites me every time. I always forget to return something. I'll write it out and I'm like, okay, it needs to do this. And then, the browser yells at me, blah, 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 doesn't return anything. And I'm like, okay, get out of my face.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so there's that. And then we also have methods. And this is where, like you said, like we did the increment up top here instead of doing counter plus plus. This is obviously a trivial example where like just doing counter plus plus probably makes more sense right now. But if we were to do something else, like whether, on click and it's building form data, or just doing something more complicated, basically, best practice would be to pop it in these methods here.
There's way more in the export default that Vue gives you. I find I use them a significantly amount less just because it's specific to the type of stuff you're doing with it. But they have similar to the computed in methods. They have a created hook. They have a mounted hook. They have before create, before destroy. So on and so forth. All those lifecycle methods. But then they also have a concept of watchers, where if you need something to update. If you need one piece of data to update based on other things, but they aren't necessarily as tightly coupled as like a computed property would be, you could stick that in a watcher. So I've seen those come in handy a lot. But yeah, there's still, this is just scratching the surface of what they give you.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. No, but this has been a great primer, honestly. Like for someone who's never done it, I feel like I'm already in shape to be able to build something pretty quickly now, that even though this is just scratching the surface. I dropped a link again to the vue.js org site. I encourage folks to check out, like just dig into the documentation a little more. We didn't go into global state management, but you mentioned Vuex, I think, is the standard one now.
Vuex is what comes out of the box for Nuxt. Vue 3, they actually recommend Pina, P-I-N-I-A,
Okay.
which is very similar. There's some like syntactical differences, but by large and part, they do the exact same thing.
Okay, gotcha. And then the rest here, the store is, like you said, is for the global state. We didn't go into that, but that's something we can definitely check out. If you just check out the docs there, folks, I dropped a couple links there. No, this has been super awesome. And honestly, I can't believe an hour and a half's gone by already.
I know, right?
Before we wrap up, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to say, Drew. I'm going to drop a link to your Twitter. I'm going to drop a link to Hey Gumball again for folks who didn't catch that at the beginning. So that's a project that Drew is working on. It's built in Vue, obviously. And that's to help out tattoo artists in terms of scheduling clients to work in a tattoo shop. And this is a pain point he's noticed. So he's filling that void. And I know you already got some customers already. I know you do this on the side, but that's cool that you got customers in there already. That's so just hat tip to you, man.
And what's awesome about it is, so I built it to help tattoo artists, but the first guy that I got to like test drive it for me, like one of his first one of the first pieces of feedback he gave to me was like, dude, my clients love using this better than just emailing me. And I'm like, fucking great. Okay. I'm nailing it from both sides then. I didn't mean to. I didn't even consider that avenue of it, but that was a cool thing. The only thing I would want to say right at the end is they touch on it in the Vue.js documentary that you shared the link to earlier. But the one thing that the Vue community, I'm not very involved in the React community. I'm not throwing shade at the React community or anything. But what I love about Vue is that it exists and persists today because so many people loved and enjoyed what Evan was doing that they all just started contributing to Patreon, that to the point to where it could become a full-time thing for him. So, it's not backed by any like huge shadowy conglomerates who we don't know what they do with our data or anything like that. It's become what it has because the people that use it love it and continue to give back to it through either, financial contributions or, code contributions or whatever. And like that part of the Vue community, like I just love that part of it so much.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I just want to say thanks again, man. Like, I know you got a lot on the go, so I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me for an hour and a half. I definitely learned a bunch here, and it's always fun hanging out with you. I know we've both been a little busy lately, so it's good catching up to you. So good seeing you, man.
Caitlin just nailed it for the end.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Thanks, Caitlin. Yeah, no, that's super awesome. Next week on the stream, it's gonna be back on Wednesday again. Gonna be hanging with Ian Douglas from Postman. So we're gonna be doing some fun stuff with Postman, JavaScript. He'll probably put me in the hot seat. I'm looking forward to that. So check that out next week. And we got a bunch of other awesome folks coming on in end of July and August, like B. Dougie from GitHub and Nacelle are going to be on, and just a bunch of other folks. So pretty excited. Thanks again, everybody. And I will see you all next week.